about me, I started out as a volunteer. I'm originally from Colorado, not a fan of Texas.
It's just the weather, you love us.
Right. I became a flight attendant. I graduated from the University of Colorado and became a flight attendant in 1987, and I flew for American for 24 years. During my step with American, I got lucky and started to do some safety work. So I would do accident investigation. I would investigate incidents that happened on and off the airplane. If the airplane crashed, I would go to crash sites. And work with the FAA and the NTSB and all of that, and kind of do, I don't know, on the accident side, kind of what we're doing on this side. So I know the importance of writing reports. I know the importance of testifying correctly in court. I am probably, well, I guess with the turnover we've had, I am the oldest,
Most seasoned.
advocate supervisor, because we've had quite a turnover. I also work for a forensic group called Robson Forensic, where I am an expert witness and I testify on behalf of airlines or attorneys or plaintiffs on events that happen on the airplane and represent them. So again, I write an extensive report for them, and then I present my expertise in court. So when you are going to court, and if you're nervous or have any questions, please hunt me down. I can give you great tips. Also, your advocate supervisor can also give you great tips on the do's and don'ts of court. Okay, so this is probably the one thing that everyone stresses the most about is these darn reports. They're not that bad now that we give you the template, and all you have to do is edit it with the new information. A court report is a professional legal document. It lives with the case. It goes into the case file and it's filed with the courts. It's a living document. Like I said, you will continue to work off the same report and just change it to what is new. And it needs to be clear and concise. You are a representative of this group, so you do not say I or we or me. It is either this CASA or CASA believes. And we like you to include the day, year, and the month, day, and the year, not June 12th or Tuesday. We need the full date to come out. Don't ever use the foster parents' names, and you're going to list them as the foster parent, not Mr. Smith or Mr. Jones. We don't need those in the court reports. Because sometimes the foster parents, the parents don't want to know, the foster parents don't want to know, the parents to know who they are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Well, I thought they're not aware of who the foster parents are? I thought I guess they aren't really visiting over there or anything.
For safety concerns, foster parents' names and address and all of that stuff is kept confidential, so that if there's ever an issue of safety for the
Even if
kids.
they're there at the hearing, like they don't necessarily
Correct.
address
And
them by name.
generally the parents are gonna end up knowing the foster parents' names, at least their first names. And yeah, if they're in court, that's gonna be put into the record, but we as CASA aren't gonna disclose that.
And that's not for us to disclose.
The foster parents, I guess, will know the parents' names.
Correct.
So, yeah, okay. Oh, one
Yes.
other question. So I think you said we submit these a few days before the court date, or?
We're gonna live in a land of reality. AJ wants them 14 days before. And I'm gonna say, yay, 14 days before, but in reality, we get that it's probably not. So we're gonna give you 14 and hope that you'll get it to us within 9. Because technically it has to be filed 5 days before. Unless it's a trial, and a trial court report must be filed 9 days before the hearing.
And then it gets filed, and then does like pretty much everybody look for that, like, oh, let's see what the CASA's saying? Does the judge read it beforehand? So everybody reads it?
And what we do is we e-file it, which is an electric filing system, and it goes goes right into the courts and is distributed to everybody that's associated with this, case. So they'll get a copy of it. We try to get the CPS court reports, and if we do get them, we will give you a copy of them for your court report. However, we've had complaints from CPS that our CASAs are just duplicating what CPS said. So please make it your report, CASA's report, not an extension of CPS's report. If we had said that it's hard to get a hold of therapists, sometimes they don't like to respond. Say there, you've attempted to contact the therapist but were unsuccessful, so you received the therapy notes from CPS.
Can I just ask a question about that? Why would CPS be more likely to have success getting notes from a therapist than we would if we both have a court order?
Because CPS is the parent.
I
And
thought
they're
we're guardian ad litem, doesn't that count for something?
But they're paying for the service, so the HIPAA law, the therapist cannot refuse to give notes or a summary to the person that's paying and who is the parent, but they can quibble about giving us the notes. They're supposed to, you just aren't always successful.
And the same thing with doctors. Doctors, we're a little more successful with doctors.
You would think that the guardian ad litem title would hold more sway.
Again, we're gonna go into reality. These people probably have a staff of 2 or 3, and they know they have to give the report to CPS, and now they've got another person that's asking for the report. So some we get them from, some we don't, some we hound on, and I've had a CASA that she would call every 3 days if she didn't get them. And finally, the therapist was like, I'm not dealing with her.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was, I kind of have to. So if you don't get responses, let us know, let your supervisors know. We will try to jump in and see what we can do, but sometimes we're only gonna get them from CPS.
And back to CPS court reports, they've gotten a lot better about sending them to me. I'm getting notification more, so I'm sending those to your supervisor. Because they do come to me when they get e-filed. So it's getting a lot better. And I will say, they do a really good job of turning theirs in on time. And we can't say to them, oh, we need your report if ours are going in 2 days before court. So we've got to have that standard of getting them in on time.
But theirs have to be in 14 days before, and ours only have to be in 5.
Right.
But,
And that's why I'm getting them a little more often now.
so, and I think a lot of the problems with CPS not turning them over was because there was an accusation that we were just copying them. Okay. The language that you use in the court report, we want unbiased. You don't want to say, or if you were talking about me, Kathy Price, she's a whack and all she cares about is her vodka. That does not go in the court report. Okay, there's a nicer way to say it. Due to Mr. Smith's recent incarceration, he was limited in doing his services. So it's just, how do we put it appropriately and get the same message across? Know that when you turn this court report into your supervisor, they're gonna edit it with questions. Send it back to you. You're going to respond to those questions, edit the report back, then they're gonna probably send it to me, and I edit it again. So it's double edited. So we hopefully will correct anything that we see. In the end, it's still gonna be your report. We are just looking for, is it appropriate? Is this what you really wanna say? Did you say it correctly? What are these medicines for? Those kind of things. It's still your report, and you have the final say, yes or no, before we turn it in. Does that make sense? I'm not gonna rewrite what you said because I want you to say something different. I'm kidding.
Well, and the other thing is, you guys have the information. You're meeting with your supervisor once a month. You're including them in the emails that you're sending, so they have a good feel for it. But you're the one with the big picture, all of this information. And so nothing should be a surprise in the court report to anybody, to your supervisor, to CPS. Everybody should know where we stand. But it's your opportunity to show the judge that, you know, this is what I'm seeing, these are my concerns, here are my recommendations.
You are the expert of that child. Okay, 14 days before the court. That's the goal, we would love that. We're gonna strive for that goal, and if you can't make that goal, please communicate with your supervisor so we're not nagging on you. Is that better, Amy?
Yeah, well, and I will say, you have to get to a point where you stop and write your court report. You have to. You're always gonna be getting new information. But as Kathy said, it needs to be put into a language that is appropriate. And we don't expect you guys to know that language from the get-go. So your coordinator's gonna edit it, Kathy's gonna edit it, Kate may edit it. Somebody's gonna help refine that language, but it's gotta get to a point where where you stop gathering information, you write down what you have so far, and then you can make a verbal change. And Steve talked about that this morning, and AJ talked about that. You can make a verbal change and say, Judge, we submitted our court report, and then we learned that, Mom's not doing as well as what we originally thought she was, or sometimes things happen, and so, but it is really important to give your coordinator, your supervisor, time to edit your report, and it takes time to do that. So I'm gonna help emphasize for them the importance of getting it to them with plenty of time so that we can make changes.
Because your coordinator, if you look on the docket, she's got probably 4 or 5 cases on that one Wednesday. That's 4 or 5 reports to edit and get filed. And so we want to make sure everybody has plenty of time. And I think Amy hit on it. The biggest barrier is, but wait, I'm still getting information. But you do. You just have to have a cutoff point.
So do we write a report? Do we turn in a report at every hearing?
No,
Everything except a progress hearing.
and a pretrial.
So regarding, and updating the document, is it kind of like you work and gather information, then you edit the document, and then you work and gather, or is it like?
What AJ always says, which I think is a good way to do things, is start writing it from the beginning.
Okay.
Okay, so, and then it's a living document, so you want to go in there and make your edits. You're gonna be putting things in Optima, your contact logs and all of that, where you can cut and paste, hopefully, some of the information, but I think it's better to write it while it's fresh. You can always refine it towards the end, but you've got that Google document that you're working in that it's immediately edited.
Okay.
And what I like to do with my volunteers is I'll look at, because again, we only meet once a month, and so I'll look at the month coming up about 6 weeks out, and I'll start emailing my volunteers saying, all right, I'll need a court report for this hearing on this day, it's this kind of court report, and I'll share them that court report again through the Google Docs, and I'll already have it started. So I'll change it from a status hearing to a permanency hearing, I'll have the correct date in there, and make sure that the technical stuff is correct, because you're gonna fill in the meat, and you'll just make changes to that one that I shared you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because when I started, it made no sense at all.
Kathy, one other thing, somebody asked about, do you write a court report for every hearing? The first day of training on that Saturday, we gave you a list of all of the hearings that are required by the statutes. So you will write a court report for all of those hearings.
So 14 days before each of those dates.
Correct.
There's a new report, or no, an update.
An updated report, but there will be additional hearings, which is what Kathy was saying, is, no, for pre-trial, we don't need to do a court report for those. But anything in that list from that first Saturday that they also talked about earlier this morning.
And I'll get that and print it out for you guys, so you'll have it. I'll go do it right.
Yeah, we actually, she
You
showed
got,
it to me.
okay, so you guys have it, okay.
And your supervisor will tell you too, and it's in Optima when we need the court report. So you're gonna get a lot of ding, 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 ding about.
Okay, good, so it's gonna tell me, this hearing is coming up on this date, okay, good.
Yeah, Optima is really beautiful. One of the things that Ruby is does a beautiful job, and the supervisors do too, is all your hearings are listed out because they're already set by the court because of that timeline.
Yeah.
And it should say court report due, this date.
Great.
Keep you on the straight and narrow.
Is
We
the
can't
first-
keep Kathy on the straight and narrow.
Is the first report due at the 60 days mark? Or,
The
or,
status hearing has to be 15 days out, and, the adversary is 15 days after the removal, and that was done by the EFE.
okay, cause we don't even come on until that point, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Unless you're in an Howard County, usually it's a month. Does that make sense? Okay, so the sections of the court report, the very first topic is other than the specifics of where the jurisdiction is the child's situation. And it's gonna be the children involved, where they're located, and the basic, when CPS was granted TMC, and when CASA was appointed. And then we're adding just a small bit of the previous history. And I think it's good to have that there because it will show a pattern. We don't expand on it like it is in the affidavit, but we give a little bit of it so that you and anyone else reading this report will know if this is a repeat offender or not. Then it's gonna go over the permanency plan, and then the summary of context since the last review. So you're gonna say right here who you contacted. And it may be the same each month, and it may be different. So that always has to stay current with what you did, not each month, I'm sorry, from the last report to this report. So you may not have contacted, I don't know, Mrs.
So here's a funny question. So in that field below summary of contact, I'm gonna put a date and who I talked to or who I left a message for. And then the following month, do I just scroll the old ones down and put the new ones above that? Okay, you just replace it.
Right, and you don't have to put the dates as you're listing your summary of contacts. If you look, it's bulleted.
Okay.
And so you'll say child, mom, you'll put it all in there. And it may be the same report to report, but you may have found some new information, a new relative.
Or maybe you called somebody and they didn't return your call.
Yeah.
That's not a contact,
Oh, okay.
because you didn't learn anything from them. You
Gotcha.
attempted,
Okay,
but we don't include attempts anymore.
okay.
Not in the court report.
Not in the court report, unless it's a parent, and you don't include it in the parent, you don't include it in the summary of contacts because it's not a contact. But if, you can include that in the parent section. I attempted to contact mom 6 times and never heard a word back. Okay. The case summary since last review. You're gonna go into each child specifically. We always like you to start with something positive about the child. Ben is a great kid, he loves sports and likes to go hiking. I'm just, that's not what it says here, but that's what we're trying to get you to say.
Well, and the thing about that is these court reports are, the kids will get them if they go get their record at the age of 18. So you don't want to say Billy is disruptive in school and is a terrible kid. You want to start with something positive about each child. You even want to try to say something positive about the parents because they're going to read this and, I'm working with a young lady who just aged out of care, and she was very surprised at all the negative things that were in her file. She was like, oh my gosh, So they're gonna read a lot of negative stuff about themselves. It's nice to put something positive.
It's nice to start on a positive note on each section. Start with something positive. And if you can't find something positive, call us and we can help you find something positive. There's always something positive. And then you're gonna go through each subsection. His physical health, his placement, mental health, healthy attachments, preparation for adult living. That's gonna be for the older kids. What is it called?
PALS,
and, but it's not gonna be relevant for your toddlers at all. And if that's the situation, you say not applicable at this time. The visitation you only do once. You can do once, you can do it on each one. Some visitations may be different for different kids, depending on if they have different fathers. So, that one, play by ear.
Okay, so I'm getting the feeling, this is not necessarily a document to keep track of what happens, this is to present new information.
correct.
Gotcha.
Okay, we do have access to the child's medical records, while the child is in care. You're gonna contact your supervisor, and then we'll get a hold of Ruby, and Ruby will pull their, health passport. It's a document, she'll put it into Optima, and you'll be able to pull it. Again, for each parent, begin with something positive. And then you're gonna fill out each section, just kind of like we did with the kids.
Hey Kathy?
Yes.
Sorry, you had mentioned the passport and Ruby downloading that. Is that a living, like, does that update on its own, or anytime they want new and updated information from the passport, does Ruby have to go in and re-download it?
Yes.
Okay.
So every time that the child goes to see a doctor, goes to the dentist, whatever, it's updated in health passport. So what we do is just have try to get that document pulled so we can see if anything's changed.
It's great new access, we haven't always had that.
Yeah.
Regarding the court-ordered services, that's gonna happen, those are gonna be set at the status hearing, and then become court-ordered services. This is the service plan that was adopted at the family group conference. So at the status hearing, you may wanna list what the court-ordered services are, or you may wanna say, a family group conference was held on March 2nd, mom and dad attended, they signed their service plan. Do we necessarily need to know point by point what's on their service plan? Unless it's totally something totally different, not necessarily. What we need to know is, are they doing their service plan? So each month, I don't wanna see a list of what their service plan is. What I wanna know is, are they progressing on their service plan, or are they not? What are they not doing, or what have they completed? We wanna keep this as short and concise as possible. Now, granted, if you have 7 kids, it's gonna be a book. But that's the goal of these reports.
Am I correct in understanding that at the status hearing is when those services actually get ordered? So they
Correct.
won't have started the services until after that hearing, right?
You know, we'll have the family group conference, and that is when they will be set, agreed on. So after that point, and if the mother and father sign off, they can start working anytime. We've had parents start working services prior to the status hearing. So, and that just shows the court that these people are really willing and trying to get their kids back and do the right thing. Okay, concerns versus recommendations. So areas of concern is where you're gonna bring up issues that are alarming to you. Areas of concern, Mrs. Butterfield's extensive history with DFPS. Josh and Betty's lack of appropriate fitting clothing, they're showing signs of ADHD, Mrs. Butterfield's mental health issues, okay? These are things that you're seeing that are not improving or not being addressed. But they have been, you have listed them earlier in the report. So in the child, regarding Josh and Betty are showing signs of ADHD, you would say possibly in the education section, the school said we are seeing possible signs of disruptive behavior, leading us to believe he may have attention problem. So you're gonna say, showing signs of ADHD, And then in the recommendations, you're gonna say you want them evaluated. So you've addressed an issue that is a concern, and then you've given a recommendation to fix that concern. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But it all has to be fact-based, and it all has to be addressed earlier in the child or parent section of the report. So it doesn't sound like you just pulled it out of nowhere. Okay, for everything CASA does not agree with in the case, an alternative must be presented by CASA. What would be an example?
Placement, visitation.
Visitation. Okay, so I have a case now where I have children refusing, young children refusing to have visits with the parents. And a visitation is part of the plan. And we have therapists saying no visitation. So for everything CASA does not agree with, we do not agree that parents have visitations with the children at this time due to the therapist's recommendations. An alternative would be keep the children in therapy and see if the therapist can do some kind of family group therapy when they see fit for that kind of visitation. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And it could be placement too. CPS might really like the foster home, but we have concerns, and so we're looking at, we'd like X relative to be, what's the word I'm looking for?
Fictive kin?
We'd like this relative to be explored
Yes.
as a placement, so that's an alternative.
Would a legitimate reason be for, like, it's like they just don't like it here, is that like a legitimate?
No,
okay.
and I'm
He
kind
hates
of,
it?
no, it could be that and it's probably not in a foster home, but it's probably, they're living with grandma and there's 12 people in the house, they're not getting enough attention, and we feel like Aunt Susie would be better because they get more one-on-one.
That, or they're living in a foster home and we have found a possible family placement, which is always gonna be our goal over the foster home. You want children with family. So we're gonna maybe make a recommendation that they explore this family member. The judge, and I've seen them do it, both strict Delaney and fair-hearted Judge Ryder, go against CPS and move children on CASA's request.
We saw that happen 2 weeks ago. The family was doing really, really well, and CPS and CASA, 5 kids, and CPS and CASA were recommending that 3 go home, wait on the other 2, and the judge said, nope, if 3 can go home, 5 can go home, and they all went home that day. That's how it can work that fast.
So, but we never have to leave a child in a situation where we question whether that's a good place, whether they're safe emotionally or physically.
Right, if you felt like they were unsafe, we would alert CPS, and start, if it's unsafe, relay those concerns and let CPS investigate it.
And I would do one more than CPS, just because I'm a little craftier. I'm gonna go for also the attorney ad litem,
Right.
Okay.
because they are the attorney for the child, and we are the guardian for the child, so if we're working together, it brings up, it's a lot more powerful. Where that balance sometimes gets a little tricky is when you're dealing probably with older kids, and so the older kids with the attorney saying, I wanna go home, and CASA saying, no, can't happen, not gonna happen, and then you're gonna see conflict. They're doing their job, and you're doing yours. So, I have a lot of that, well, anyway. in my outer counties, we are new to Leon and Madison, and the attorney ad litems were also acting as the guardian ad litems. And so when we came in, there was a little pushback because we were taking over one of their roles. What I am hearing now, after being there for, how long have we been there, 6 months?
No, a year in November.
A year in November. They're saying you have made such a difference and our lives so much easier because I only have to concentrate on this task and not figure out how to do this.
And Kathy has made wonderful inroads in those counties. And we got an email from the judge praising Kathy and also used these words, your CASA volunteers are the gold standard. So you got a lot to live up to, people. I'm just kidding. But I mean, that's how much the judge respects CASA. So you guys are gonna be well trained, you're gonna be prepared, you know, you're gonna do a good job.
That's it. So, questions, I mean, I know the court report's kind of a daunting thing, it seems to be one of the biggest, concerns of volunteers. Between the court report and testifying in court seem to be the biggest heartburns.
Do those kind of go hand in hand with each other, like a lot of what you're gonna actually be saying in court is probably included in the court report, or we're not bringing anything new to light?
I think what I usually tell my volunteers is, you know, the judges read the court report, the attorneys have read the court report, and you're gonna see what's happening in the dialogue of that hearing. And I'm gonna watch you, and we're gonna be on the same page, and you're gonna want it, if it's not going well, you're gonna wanna say this, 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 and this. And I'm gonna look at you and say, I'll give you two, you can say two concerns. Because we don't wanna go in there and hit them with 20, right?
I mean, yeah.
You're gonna have to prioritize. The rest we can work on, but you want on the judge's radar your 2 top concerns. So is it getting the child tested for developmental delays in a CANS or ECI? That's gonna be one of our big ones. We want that child tested. So you're gonna make that recommendation verbally, so it's on the court transcript. And the other one may be something positive. Mom showed up for all visitations and they were very appropriate and loving.
And if you get pictures of the kids, a lot of times the placements will text you pictures. The judge in Brazos County especially loves to see pictures of the kids. So when I was standing in for a volunteer who couldn't be there, I didn't have much new to report. I said, I'll echo what the worker said, visits are going great, placement is great. By the way, I have a picture. And he loved it. You know, he wants to see the kids doing well.
Okay. This is the court report that you're gonna use up until the trial. And then we have a totally different court report because we just love to throw you off. But it's not difficult. When you get to a trial, it really the report has very little to do with the children. It's, now you're going, are they keeping the parental rights, or are they terminating the parental rights? And you're making your case in the best interest of the child at that time. So it's gonna be more on the parents. So we'll help you through that.
So did you say that when we get this report, our supervisor will have already begun to fill it out? Is that what I understood? Will that be the case with
No.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, so what you're gonna get, and I'll share it with everybody. Does everybody in here have a Gmail address, or do some of you need a Word document? Everybody has Gmail. Okay, good. Then I can just share the document with you, and I'll put a reminder in there, make a copy. Okay, because you don't want to, that happened last training class where everybody was changing everybody's document.
And it's a live document, so
I can see as you're typing if we're in there at the same time, which is interesting. It's like, whoa, what happened? So I'll make sure you guys get that today.
So when I make a report, you'll still be seeing what I've added in there?
Yeah, we probably won't look at it necessarily at the same time, but sometimes I've been on the phone with somebody and one person is typing and we're talking about it. I really like how it works. It's a lot better than I make changes, I email it to you, we email it back. It's not as time consuming.
And you can always track the changes that were made. Sometimes I'll look back and see who made what changes. But when we make recommendations or suggest changes, we'll highlight it, unless it's something really small. If
A comma.
or if I'm gonna wordsmith a little different, I'm not gonna put that in there, that I made that change.
Yeah.
But if I'm going for something different, I'm gonna make a suggestion and say, can you accept this? And you'll say yay or nay.
And sometimes it's really simple things like, I'll say, where did you get this information? Maybe you haven't said, the therapist said, maybe your sentence says, Billy has ADHD. Well, where did that come from? Who said that? What do we have? It's gotta be fact-based. Those are the kinds of changes I see in general. You've got the information. It really is about formatting and language.
Yeah, he's taking these medications. For what?
For what? Yep. And it's a lot to remember, but that's what's nice about starting from the beginning, like when you're planning your investigation, when you're going in to talk to somebody, you have those questions, but I was on the phone with mom and I was just going down the court report because the first time I did it, I forgot to ask what her highest level of education was. And I got to that point of writing the report and I was like, darn it, I forgot to ask it. So, but one of the things you want to do is bring your court report with you to court. And Kathy always has them ready for her volunteers. So you know what your recommendations are. It gives you makes you feel a little more confident in court. Because you've got it right in front of you, not trying to remember everything.
Any more questions?
So the only thing that the only place that we would actually speak during the hearing would be the concerns and recommendations,
Okay, so,
or would we?
and it's gonna be depending on, again, whose courtroom you're in. If you're in with Judge Ryder is always gonna say, and now CASA. And he's gonna want to hear what you have to say. So if it's a contentious hearing, then what you're gonna hit him with is what you believe is in the best interest of the child of what's been going on. Are we discussing a placement change? Are we upset with the parents for, if there's an issue, he's gonna wanna hear your input on the issue. If there's no issue, then you're gonna say, placement is great, child's doing well, CASA believes the child needs a CANS evaluation for developmental delays and maybe some daycare for socialization. Delaney,
He always says, CASA, what do you have to add?
usually,
And you don't have, he always mentions, CASA has nothing to add is a perfectly good response. If you're not gonna add anything new or your take on it, it's too busy for him to. And then sometimes he gets in a hurry, cause I stood in, on 3 hearings and only once did he ask what CASA wanted, cause he was getting irritated with the attorneys. Cause they were talking over each other and arguing, and so he was like just ready to end the hearing. It's not personal.
especially if you're not, he can tell if you have a stake in the game. He's very observant of the body language and of what your position, you can tell. I mean, if you have 2 attorneys over here and you feel very strongly about the issue, he's gonna know by your body language that you have something to say and he's gonna ask you. Same thing with Judge Ryder.
And don't be afraid to say, Judge, you know, it's okay to do that. In Burleson County, the judge doesn't, either judge, there's 2 of them over there, don't necessarily call on CASA. And we have one volunteer that'll say, excuse me, Judge, and speak right up, you know, and other volunteers that are a little less assertive, but you know, you've got the most information. You are the one.
And you're standing up with your supervisor, so if
You're
you're
not by yourself.
if you're like, I wanna say something, and I'll go, no, and I can tell you're a little hesitant to jump into the dogfight, I'll put you right in. I have no problem going, we got something to say.
Yep.
Yeah, and
But
it's,
this report's going before the judge, right?
Right.
So even if we don't say it, he's gonna see it.
And all the parties too, all the attorneys, and CPS get it also.
So even if we don't speak, if we've got a concern and a recommendation, they'll see it.
Except I'm always gonna say, at least in Grimes, if you're standing up with me, I'm gonna tell you to bring up 2. If you have none, all praise is great, 2 great praises, but 9 times out of 10, we're gonna have at least one concern, and I want you to believe, I want your 2 top on the record. And that's just my psychobabble, but
It's good.
which is why going to the court to observe is really helpful, so that you can see what you're walking into before you actually walk into it.
because we kind of threw Ruby in.
Didn't we, Ruby? She survived. You should have seen her in court on Wednesday. She was fantastic. She was not hesitant.
It's our girl.
It wasn't scary.
No, it is scary though. The first time I went, I was like, oh my gosh, they're gonna ask me a question. And I knew the information, but just going to court makes me nervous. You're in a courtroom, you stand up, the judge is wearing a robe, you know,
I
I
just
mean.
wanted it over because I've been standing for 3 hours. So I
Yeah,
just
that's
wanted
true.
So wear good shoes.
Yes, and the second time I went, I was I'm not a shy person, if you haven't noticed. And I was like, well, yeah, you know, it's like I just couldn't get it out. So it's not easy.
And I giggled, I was standing, I was like,
Who is this? Yeah. So your supervisor is there to support you and give you a little nudge, and have confidence that you have the most information.
and if you freeze, it's gonna come out.
Kathy's gonna say it for you. And that was a really strange court hearing in that they were out in the hall. There was new information from the attorney ad litem. I mean, it was real serious information, and so they were doing some back and forth on who's gonna say what, and does CPS know this? I mean, it was crazy.
Is this like everything's first one?
No, this was what, a month ago? And so all of a sudden we had new information, and recommendation was, I guess so. You know, that's how I felt. I was of 2 minds about it and didn't really have enough time to think about what is in the best interest. But I felt like it was okay. There was good supervision of the kids, but it was not ideal. So sometimes things change just that day when you're there.
All right, we're done.
Thanks, Kathy.
Yeah, I gotta turn this off though.